breaking tonight. The FISA abuse report is officially out, and tonight the deep state, they need to understand they are all in deep legal jeopardy. Premeditated fraud perpetrated repeatedly on the FISA court with all the unverifiable lies from Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier put together by Christopher Steele, who had only one source. Yeah, a guy that was an egomaniac known to lie. Nothing but outright lies, corruption, abuse of power, a massive political bias, omission on multiple occasions of exculpatory evidence. It is now, right here, in black and white, for all to see. 434 pages, 17 identified significant failures, inaccuracies, and omissions. One single source Steele had, and that even Steele said was an unreliable liar and egomaniac. And this source said none of his information was meant to be used by anybody, and that everything we on this program with our, I can't mention everybody, our ensemble cast, everything we told you about Hillary Clinton's unverifiable, bought and paid for, dirty Russian dossier is true, and it was, as we told you, without the dossier, without the dirty dossier, no FISA warrant. It's all in the report. It was central. It was essential. Basically, it was almost all of the application, but for three minor other details to get this warrant against Carter Page, to backdoor into all things Trump campaign transition, and then the Trump presidency, deep into the Trump presidency. And as we told you, it was one massive coordinated effort by Comey's corrupt FBI. Comey's corrupt. And by the way, Jim, come on the show. Oh, you want to go on Fox? Come on the #1 show on cable, full hour tomorrow night. Wide open for you. 3 hours on my radio show. 625 stations. Come on, Super Patriot. I got a lot of questions for you because you're backed in the corner on a lot of different lies that you may be so arrogant you don't even know you told them. By the way, all to gain this backdoor into all things Trump, transition, candidacy, and then presidency. Everything we have been reporting for years was dead on accurate. We were right every step of the way. Look at this. According to the Attorney General William Barr today, the Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken in the rush to obtain and maintain is the key word in this, the FISA surveillance of Trump campaign associates. FBI officials knowingly misled the FISA court. They knowingly and purposely omitted critical exculpatory facts from their filings, and they knowingly suppressed or ignored information negating the reliability of their principal source. There was only one source. It was a bad source. Quote, the malfeasance and misfeasance detailed in the Inspector General's report reflects a clear abuse of the FISA process. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Inspector General Horowitz does not have the power, as we told you, to empower a grand jury or panel or conduct warrants or press charges. Nor did Horowitz have the ability to reach beyond the confines of the DOJ and the FBI for answers. Remember, in his previous reports, we have told this to you before. Oh, yeah, he referred Comey, McCabe, lying, government information, all of this. They were all referred. Nothing has happened. But as for the Attorney General Barr and the U.S. Attorney John Durham, both of them took a very, very powerful stance today. They both have the power to do all of that. And in this case, it is now in their hands. And as we speak, the Durham probe into the origins of the Russian witch hunt and much more is now ongoing. And in a very rare public statement, frankly unprecedented even, John Durham earlier today disagreed with the FISA report's one conclusion on criminal intent. This is a preview of coming attractions. Quote, I have the utmost respect for the mission of the Office of Inspector General and the comprehensive work that went into the report prepared by Mr. Horowitz and his staff. Key line here. However, our investigation is not limited to developing information from within component parts of the Justice Department. In other words, he's basically saying that Horowitz had a very narrow purview with which he could work. Our investigation has included developing information from other persons' entities, both in the U.S. and outside the U.S. Italy, Great Britain, Australia, just comes to mind. Based on the evidence collected to date, and while our investigation is ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to prediction on how the FBI case was opened. Well, what is Mr. Durham saying here? Clearly, he is signaling they have found evidence of criminal conspiracy with the intent needed legally to warrant a prosecution. That statement there, coupled with Attorney General Barr's statements, coupled with that speech we told you about the Attorney General gave, should send a shiver up the spine of each and every high-ranking official responsible for this disgusting, despicable abuse of power and corruption. John Durham is now very strongly hinting the origins of the Russia probe weren't just wrought with inaccuracies and errors, but instead downright unlawful. In other words, let me sum it up even more clearly. If I were Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, Strzok, Page, I'd be a little petrified by the comments of both Barr and Durham. And while we await the results of Durham's criminal investigation, it is very important not to overlook the damning findings inside of this Inspector General FISA report abuse. Let us start with a review of the very basis of the FISA abuse. As we told you now for some time, it was true. Nunes got it right. Grassley Graham got it right. Christopher Steele's dirty Russian dossier, bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. According to the report, that dossier, quote, played a central and essential role in the FISA request against Trump campaign associate Carter Page. Read pages 120 to 130, and you will see if you don't have the dirty dossier, you didn't get the FISA application and the FISA warrant. In fact, the report is clear about that and basically say, no dirty dossier, no warrant. And we long have reported Steele's so-called intelligence was unverifiable garbage. That is confirmed today. And Steele told the Inspector General that this dossier was not a finished product. Remember the interrogatory in Great Britain? He said, I have no idea if any of it's true. It was mostly based on one single source, a compromised source, a non-reliable source with a massive ego who apparently liked to make things up. It was uncorroborated intelligence. All of it we now know was unverifiable. But every time, all four of those warrants, three of which Jim Comey signed, says at the top of the FISA application, verified. Quote, it gets worse. Steele himself was not the originating source for any of the so-called factual information in his reporting. Steele instead relied on a primary subsource for information, who used his or her network of subsources to gather information. There's only one source. Pay close attention. This is huge. The FBI conducted interviews of that primary subsource, the one source that, in fact, was used for the dossier by Christopher Steele. That was in January, March, and May of 2017. That raised significant questions about the reliability of the Steele election reporting. The primary and only subsource told the FBI that she had not seen Steele's reports until they became public that month, and that she made statements indicating that Steele misstated or exaggerated the one primary source statements in multiple selections of the reporting. Now, this primary subsource felt that the tenor of Steele's report was far more conclusive than was justified. And the subsource, primary, only subsource for the most part, stated he or she never expected Steele to put the primary subsource's statements in reports or present them as facts. The primary subsource explained that his or her information came from, quote, word of mouth and hearsay. Here we go again. Conversation that he or she had with friends over beers in a bar, and that some of the information, such as allegations about, Trump's sexual activities, two hookers, Ritz-Carlton, Moscow, they were statements he or she heard in a bar, made in jest. I'm not making that up. And look at this. The primary subsource said the corroboration for her information was zero. Zero. Yet on the second and third renewals, Comey's FBI merely wrote that they found Russia-based subsource to be truthful and cooperative. That is a lie. The second and third renewals were outright lies. By the way, I would argue so is the first. With this, by the way, you can go find that on pages, let's see, 186 to 190. With this information alone, we have now criminal conspiracy to commit fraud on a FISA court to deny one American, Carter Page, who turns out actually served his country and worked, likely for the CIA, and cooperated to help the country he loved, as he had told me in multiple interviews. Remember, at the top of every FISA application is the word, Jim, pay attention, Comey, pay close attention. You signed 3 times. At the top it says verified. We now know that all the information, the vast majority of information, the bulk of information was unverifiable. And according to a former deputy AG, Rod Rosenstein, senior law enforcement official, remember he said this? He must swear that the FISA application is true and correct based on admissible evidence and credible witnesses. None of what Rosenstein says right here happened. None of it. And he signed the 4th warrant, the 3rd renewal warrant. He has a lot of explaining to do himself. Take a look.
There's a lot of talk about FISA applications, and many people that I see talking about it seem not to recognize what a FISA application. A FISA application is actually a warrant, just like a search warrant. In order to get a FISA search warrant, you need an affidavit signed by a career federal law enforcement officer who swears that the information in the affidavit is true and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. And that's the way we operate. And if it's wrong, sometimes it is, if you find out there's anything incorrect in there, that person is going to face consequences.
Face consequences. Rod, you signed the 4th warrant, the 3rd renewal. Okay. And Jim, you signed 3 of them. Super Patriot. In October 2016, Jim Comey signed off on the initial FISA warrant against Carter Page, fix my tie here, which denied him his constitutional rights and his civil liberties. And, by the way, signed off on something that was unverifiable. He knew it wasn't corroborated. They all knew. He knew the primary subsource refuted Steele's so-called intelligence. He knew Christopher Steele had serious credibility issues, and they lied about that. He knew Steele had sketchy ties with Russian oligarchs. He knew Steele was being funded by the Clinton campaign, and they hid that fact. Why wasn't the fact Hillary Clinton bought and paid for the dossier front and center right before the FISA judges? They also knew that, and they hid it, just as we have been reporting. And Comey would have to be a complete and total moron, and I don't rule that out, by the way, not to know that Steele was leaking his information to the press. In fact, the FBI included circular reporting. Remember, we told you this. You know, you got hacks like, conspiracy theorist Michael Isikoff, David Corn. They're fed information. They don't corroborate it. They just run with it as if it's gospel. Wow, great reporting, Mike Isikoff. Christopher Steele was the lone source for that Yahoo News report by Michael Isikoff, political hack that he is. And Steele was ultimately fired as a source by the FBI for leaking, but he had such credibility. But guess what? Even as late as April 2018, there's Super Patriot Jim Comey calling Steele a reliable source. Take a look.
Christopher Steele, is he considered reliable according to your sources as an intelligence agent?
Yes.
What's your assessment of that dossier?
As it was described to me when it came in, it was raw intelligence, so a series of reports from a credible person with a reliable track record and a known, experienced, and source network in Russia. And so it was something to be taken seriously. It didn't mean that it was all true, but it was to be taken seriously. And its core assertion was corroborated by other intelligence. Its core assertion being the Russians have a campaign going on to interfere in the American election.
That was then and remains today a total lie. One of many from Mr. Super Patriot Jim Comey. And this is important. We haven't even discussed the glaring omissions in the FISA applications. Oh, yeah, that's a big deal, too. On multiple occasions, Comey's FBI withheld exculpatory information from the FISA court. They omitted Carter Page had previously assisted a U.S. government agency, our CIA. In fact, an FBI attorney actually altered an email so that it stated the opposite about Carter Page, that Page was not a source for the government agency when, in fact, he was. They omitted damning information that determined Steele's subsource, again, a boaster and egoist. And they omitted 2 exculpatory statements. Poor George Papadopoulos, he spent 2 weeks in jail from when he was being surveilled, saying outright, no interference at all. They just kept that out with the Trump campaign and Russia. One omission after another, one lie after another. Why lie about the subsource to get Trump? Why lie about the true status of Carter Page? Apparently worked undercover, risking his life to help the CIA and was fully cooperative at all points to get Trump. Why lie about unverified, single source, Clinton bought and paid for that dirty dossier from Russia? Of course, to get Trump. Why not tell the court, the FISA court, that the Clinton campaign paid for it right up front, right in their grill, because you know they would have denied the application. You got the dirty dossier, you got omissions, exculpatory information withheld, circular reporting, the surveillance of campaign officials. It was just their means to an end.